Welcome back, friends, to the Where to Move channel. We have a doozy of a video for you to enjoy. Today we're going to share with you what you need to know when it comes to new construction in the Houston, Texas market area. What you hear may scare you, but it will definitely prepare you for the rabbit hole of building a brand new home. To tell us everything we need to know is Keith Rodgers, who has a 25-year career in real estate, is a former board member of the Greater Houston Builders Association, a life director with the Texas Association of Builders, and National Association of Builders. Keith also recently joined the #1 broker in Houston, Compass. If you're considering buying a home in the Greater Houston area, new or resale, you would be hard-pressed to find someone more qualified to represent your interests.
If you're someone that's looking to buy or build a new home, there's a lot of things you need to really pay attention to. Number one, make sure you're working with a good, reputable realtor that understands that process. There's so many realtors out there, but not all of them really understand a process of not only the buying the home, the contract parts of it, but building the home. If you're going to build up front, understanding the slabs and the studs and everything that goes in the components of the house. It's really important to be able to follow that. A lot of builders, they'll accept that realtor, have them work with them, but know that the on-site's there for a reason. They represent the builder. They do not represent the buyer. So it's very important for a buyer to have that representation, that realtor, but understand those contracts and how those work. So way back in the 90s, I kind of grew up in retail. I went to work for a gentleman that we were into radiant barriers. Radiant barriers, you walk into a house nowadays, you see the aluminum foil that's up on your roof deck in your attic space, right? Understanding how the transfer of heat works, aluminum foil. You grab a baked potato, it's super hot, you put your hands around it, it's not very hot. It's just the way the heat transfers from radiant barriers. That's kind of how I got into the business. Roll of foil and a bucket of glue. Calling on lumber yards, roofing companies, architects, designers, anybody that was going to spec it or build with it. That's how we got started in that. I got into countertops. I've done plumbing. I've got a plumbing license. Pest control. We can talk pest control. The port boxes. Home Team Pest Defense has these port boxes. You put them in there. Does it work? Sure, it works. It puts pest control in the house. Is it a gimmick? Maybe. It puts pest control in your house, in the walls in the house, not necessarily in the house. I've just kind of done a little bit of everything.
Now, before getting too deep into the weeds, you need to kind of figure out where you want to live, because there are new home developments all across the Houston area.
Are there new developments going on all the time? Your master plans, look for your master plan developments versus your smaller developments. Your master plan is going to have your pools and your parks and those type incentives, your HOA fees. You'll pay into an HOA fee that can range anywhere from $650 annually to $2,000 annually. So kind of look at what your incentives are. Do they have an elementary school within that community? Or are you going to have to go outside your community to go to the elementary school? Those kind of things. Sidewalks, I've seen there's no sidewalks in communities. Your master plans, again, and they're going to be various. I mean, you can have $300,000 homes up to $1 million homes in the same community. And that's really, really good, in my opinion, for those lower end priced homes, because it's going to maintain that value. You go into a neighborhood where everything in there is the same price, right? There's really nothing to help maintain and keep those values going up. So the values don't go up as much per se. We see houses nowadays that, before COVID and after COVID, they increased in value $100,000, versus communities where we didn't see that as much, just because all the houses are the same price. Moving to Houston. Houston is a very, very large metro city, right? You can live in the northern side, and that can be, the Woodlands all the way up Huntsville. And Huntsville is another 45 minutes north of here. If you want to move into the Katy area, west of Houston, that's a long ride all the way out toward Katy, all the way to Galveston, and all the way as far east as Baytown, Mont Bellevue, even further out now. So, when you ask about how far is it to drive for here, it's an hour. No matter where you're going, you can start in the Woodlands, you're going to drive an hour. You can start in Katy, you're going to drive an hour. So just understand what part of the world you want to live in. Each development's going to be very, very different. And where are you working? is important. Are you working downtown? Or are you staying on the north side? You certainly don't want to have that hour commute every day, but some do. So it just depends on what part of town you want to live in. Just kind of narrow that down. Understand the counties. Are you in Harris County? Are you in Chambers County? Are you in Fort Bend County? Look at those things too, because each county can have different taxes, rules, those type things. So understand those things as well.
Like many areas across the country, low inventory is a challenge. With a balanced market having somewhere around 6 months of inventory, Houston is about half of that, and the home builders are no different.
In 2021, we were building, say, D.R. Horton, 3,000 homes a year. 2022, they did 31. This year, we're down to 2,700. So we're probably 4,000 houses behind where we need to be on new construction. We're down 3661 from last year. Land right now is probably the biggest challenge for home builders. And you're seeing more and more, we're getting further and further out. They're carving out little bitty niches. You do have these big grand developments still, but not as many as you used to see back in the day. But you have, big groups like Artavia. That's going to be huge. And it's multiple year. These can take 15, 20 years to build out. Artavia is on the north side of town, 242 between 45 and 59. That whole 242 corridor, you're going to see several big developments going on out there. The Parkway 99, you're going to have multiple developments going out there on the north side from Woodson's, Highlands. You'll just continue to see that built out. If you see trees, they're going to be putting stuff there eventually. So if you're going to build a house from the ground up, some of the really good tips is drive through that neighborhood ahead of time. Drive through and see the houses that are being built, under construction. Look at the job sites. Are they clean job sites? Or are they a complete mess? That really can tell you how well that builder does. A superintendent that's building that house, how many houses is he carrying? Is he carrying 10 or 15, 20 houses? Is he carrying 40, 50 houses in multiple communities to where he's not able to control his trades? Because that's very, very important. Get pre-approved. You can do that with your own lender. Try to use somebody local, but just know that all of these builders are going to have their own in-house lending institution, whether they're in-house or partnered, whatever you want to call it. And you could walk in with a pre-approval letter and hand it to them. They're probably going to ask you to go ahead and get pre-approval through their partner. And there's a couple reasons why. Incentives might be built into that. Number one, the incentives, probably the biggest thing, but also understand how the contracts go. If your lender that you brought to the table doesn't perform and you miss the close date because of your lender, in the contract, it's probably written in that you're going to get a fee or a fine per day, and they can be $100, it could be $800. And even before that, that's why you have to have these conversations with a good realtor. If you're going to go out shopping, let your realtor set up appointments, and that can be as simple as a phone call. They can email those on-sites. Just give us an idea of where you want to go. You really do want your realtor to be involved in that process, where you're going to go, so they can walk you through this. Do people go on their own all the time? Oh, absolutely, all the time. But you're really going to miss out possibly on some things if you don't get your realtor involved. An inventory home, and say this home is being built, but all of a sudden it's going to be ready in 30 days, right? And it's not considered inventory yet. The incentive might end August 31st, but then it's going to hit the MLS September 1st. How far along is construction? Say you want to pick out your flooring. If it's to a certain point, some builders might let you. Some might say, nope, we've already picked it. And they might put a board on the table, and here's your floors, here's your cabinets, here's your countertops, here's your lighting. It's already picked for you. You can't change any of that if it's far enough along in the stage. But if it's early in the stage, maybe they might say, well, we'll let you change the flooring. Once that process starts, depends on if you have to go to the design center or not. And then you go to the design center, you start picking. That's more money because you're going to pay 50% of whatever you pick in that design center. So it can cost you a little bit of money to get it going, deposits, whatnot. Most of those deposits are non-refundable. Get into options. A lot of the builders, the things that we're talking about today, they're included, but they also have steps. A level 1 granite, and it can go from $20 up to $100 a foot. And the various vendors that offer those, they buy them from different parts of the world, and then they fabricate them, install them. Cabinets are the same way. Are they job-built cabinets? Or are they built here in America? Or are they built in China, brought over? It's already included, but you're going to pay to get better. Tell people, because they always say, well, I want a refrigerator included. Lennar is big about that. Everything's included. Sometimes they'll come to me and say, well, can you get the builder to put blinds in my house for me? Understand, they'll do it, but they're going to charge you 60% of the markup to do it. You're better off just doing it after. Let's find something else to ask that builder for. Buying an inventory home, there might be some certain incentives out there. And right now there's certain builders that are doing certain incentives. Read the fine print, because it could be 3% towards closing cost of the total build of the house. They might do a buy down. They might do appliances, multiple of others, or just one or the other. You can't always just use that money for whatever you want. There's very specific things that they're going to ask you to do, whether it be a buy down, whether it be towards closing. You can't say, well, I want to knock it off the price of my house by 3%. They're not going to do that. They're going to offer you that incentive because they're going to have their lenders involved, or their vendors involved with appliance package or that type of thing. So don't walk in thinking that you can get 3% off the price of the house, because that's just not always how that's going to work. Okay, so let's talk about builder contracts. Every builder is going to have their own in-house contract. And we've seen these things as little as 8 pages, as many as 80 pages. Depends on the builder. And some of them are, you start reading through there, it's some crazy stuff in there. I mean, it can tell you in there you can't have a candle in your home. Seriously. So just be prepared to really try to understand those contracts, but also know there's no taking out. You can't cross things out on a contract. It is what it is, right? These are written by their in-house attorneys, and they're going to tell you either sign it or you don't. Your biggest line of defense on when you're building or buying a new construction house certainly is your own third-party inspector, but make sure that that guy really understands construction and how that works. The builder has built this house. They have gone through, they have their own inspectors looking at this house. But pay attention, because those inspectors work for that builder. That builder has a quota. They got to get this house built. Are they going to flag major things? Of course they will. But sometimes it's just check, check, check. We're going to check these things off. We see it all the time. We have inspections on electrical panels. They double lug on the electrical panels. Is that proper? Technically not, but they can do it. They get away with it. And why do they do it? It's just quicker for them to get that kind of thing done. Then when you get ready to resell that house several years down the road, and then the inspector comes, guess what? The inspector is going to hit, hey, you double lugged it. Well, that's how I bought the house. Things are going to be found that you would never think about, that the builder says, don't worry about it. Aesthetically, we can see those things. We can see if the LVP is lipped up. We can see if the window's not caulked. We can see those things. Some of the things you can't see, the plumbing. You run PEX pipe. I can hit it with a nail. That PEX pipe might stay good for months, and then all of a sudden you create a leak, right? It's slowly dripping between the walls. Maybe you have moisture in there. You're not going to see that. Always, always, always encourage, go get your own third-party inspections done on these houses. It's construction. Things get missed. They don't always miss them on purpose. It's always going to be something that's just a complete, it just missed it. The fresh air intake.
One of these supplies air directly into the cold air return of your furnace, and the other one provides combustion air for your appliances.
It was installed. Everything looked good. It wasn't plugged in. They didn't plug it in because when they installed it, the plug was stuck in between the two rafters. Instead of just trying to figure out how to plug it in, they just left it. If we hadn't had the inspection, we would have never found out that the fresh air intake was not plugged in. Now, we've seen complete rooms, master bedrooms, over in a corner of a house that missed all of the insulation. So now you're dealing with, in this hot and humidity, it's you want that house to be good and tight. And that goes into a whole nother rabbit hole of when you're looking at a house and they build these things so darn tight, they could be areas of a house that they seal the top plate. You think of your outside air, but people don't think about their attic space. Their attic space, you put that house under pressure with your air conditioning. It's want to suck the air into the house. You open the door, you close the door, it just creates that pressure, right? You can pull air from your attic into your house. Your attic is typically 10 degrees as hot as it is outside. So if it's 100 degrees outside, that's a 90-degree attic space. That hot air can get pulled into your house if it's not properly sealed. Then you create issues of hot and cold and damp and moist, and then you can get into some mold issues. So you got to really pay attention to that. There's some builders out there that they try to combat that with spray foam. Spray foam has come a long ways. 20 years ago, it was kind of introduced a little bit into this market. People were afraid of it, but understand open cell foam and closed cell foam. Which one is best, right? You certainly don't want to spray foam up against a piece of wood that gets wet and it doesn't breathe, and then you create either dry rot or mold, those type of things. There's some builders out there right now that have gotten in trouble with that. And they just have mold and they have to figure out better ways to do that. And if you want an idea of how that works, is take you an igloo cooler, put you just a little bit of water in it, put it outside and leave it outside closed for a few days, and then go open that in this heat and humidity and see what's going on inside that igloo cooler. It's almost the same thing in the house. They have to bring fresh air into that house, and that's where that damper that wasn't plugged in, it's bringing fresh air into the house. Your cooking, your aerosols, anything like that, it tends to stay in the house. So you want to get that air circulating. Underperforming ACs in this market, it's pretty interesting. So you take a house, say a 3,000 square foot, 2-story house that you built in the Woodlands, and they do what they call a manual J on this particular house, the builder will. Well, that builder builds that house all over the city of Houston, and he might build it 100 different times, right? But every single time he builds it is different, right? It could be facing east, west, north, or south. It could have trees. It could not have trees. It could have, right next to a lake, various things that can affect the build of that house. That manual J really should be done on every single house. The builders don't do that. They're going to get a manual J for this particular floor plan, and they're going to use it on every single house. Every single house can be different, and so the heat load can be different, and you can just create issues without even thinking about it.
Now you kids are probably asking yourselves, hey Matt, how can we get back on the right track?
Then you get into your warranty, and that's something that Texas legislation just changed. Builders have always offered a 2-10 warranty. 2 years for the smaller stuff, 10 years for your structure warranty. And builders are going to slowly but surely start implementing the new 6-year warranty into their program. And how does that affect a homeowner? They just really have to pay attention to their maintenance of their homes better, right? Lawsuit going on right now. House was built, stucco. Stucco can have a bad name, bad rap if it's not done properly and maintained. Buyer comes in, buys the house in year 9, and then finds out that it has stucco issues, turn around and sues the builder. Even though he didn't buy the house from the builder, the house is technically still under a structural warranty, and this was a structural issue. And so that really opened up a whole can of worms on that. And it really came down to maintenance. The previous owner didn't maintain the stucco. Talking about painting, talking about caulking, those kind of things that really homeowners don't do. I mean, we see it all the time. Roofing, you have to maintain all those jacks that are sticking out of your roof. In this climate, you really need to maintain those on an annual basis, at least once a year or every other year. Caulk them, those kind of things. It's going to prevent the leaks that you might get during the storms. Your windows, you got to caulk those. So the reason for the 6-year from the 10-year is because everything between 7, 8, 9, 10 typically is a maintenance issue. If it's something majorly wrong for the house, you're going to notice it. If it's got a structural issue, cracked slab, anything like that, you're going to see it those first few years if you're really paying attention to what's going on. So that was really kind of the reason for the change. I think it's Tennessee, it's 2 years. So let's talk about resale versus new. What are some of the benefits on that? You know, rates right now are in the 7s on resale, those kind of things. So you kind of get what you pay for as far as, you know, your rates are going to be there. You see the house. It's maybe gone through its inspections, its warranties, those kind of things. You see it. It's not going to cost you as much as new construction. New construction, especially if you build, you can build it to your whatever specs you want and build it the way you want it. Inventory is a little bit different. You're going to have to find the one you like. Your prices are going to be a little bit higher, but then they help you right now, especially buying down rates, covering your closing costs, those type of things. So that's probably the two biggest things is the location. You know, your resale versus your new construction. It's further and further out on your new construction. Say you want to be in a specific area in town, you're going to have to find you a good resale house, and then be prepared to maybe do some remodeling to bring it to where you want to see it. And people say that, well, I want to live in this particular area, maybe because of family, my job, or whatnot, and there's just no new construction there. You're just going to have to find you something that fits.
I've taught you people all I can. I gotta move it on into karate class.
Wow, that's a lot to know. Thanks for sharing your knowledge, Keith. If you or anyone you know is looking to buy a home in the greater Houston market area, you'll need an agent. Give Keith a call and let him know you saw this video. His information is in the description. Until next time, y'all take care.